Hello everyone, welcome to Espressif's webinar on ESP ZeroCode. In today's discussion, we'll talk about a new product offering from Espressif, which is the ZeroCode, and how you can build Matter-enabled products with it. Before we get into the details, I'll do a quick round of introduction for all of us here. I'm Rishikesh. I'm primarily responsible for Espressif's contributions in Matter in the Connectivity Standards Alliance, as well as Espressif's Matter SDK. On my left is Chirag. Chirag leads the ESP ZeroCode team and makes sure that our customers go from evaluation to production in the shortest possible time. And on my right is Kedar. Kedar heads the application frameworks department within Espressif and makes sure that all such initiatives fall in place. So guys, let's get started.
Yep. Right.
Okay. So Kedar, do you want to talk about what actually is ESP ZeroCode?
Right. So ESP ZeroCode is a web portal that we've created. This web portal lets you order modules from Espressif which are pre-flashed with a specific firmware. Now the obvious question would be, what kind of firmware? As a user of ESP ZeroCode, you can specify the kind of device types you want, the kind of hardware configurations that you want, the device drivers that you would want to use, and thus describe the firmware that you want. It lets you evaluate this firmware right from the browser so that you can make sure that it adheres to whatever features that you want to build. And once you're happy with it, then you can go ahead and place production orders for this firmware. What happens here is that now when you get modules from Espressif, instead of getting blank modules, you'll get modules that are pre-flashed with this firmware that you've configured and you are happy with based on your evaluation. All you do is take these modules, plop it on your PCB, and you are ready to ship the products. Thus, the entire product development experience can be done in a matter of minutes, and that's the idea of ZeroCode. The other thing that we've tried to do is that made sure that this firmware offers the best-in-class experience to all the end users that use this product. So if you as a device maker are using ESP ZeroCode, then we try to guarantee that your end users are very, very comfortable and very happy with the kind of products that they are using with this. Case in point, one of the things that we've tried to do is use Matter, which is the latest standard for smart homes that is baked into this firmware. So as we're talking about Matter, Rishikesh here, who leads the Matter initiative, is probably the best person to talk about this. Rishikesh, can you tell a little bit about Matter?
Sure. So Matter is a new smart home ecosystem standard from Connectivity Standards Alliance and the member companies. The member companies include ecosystem guys like Amazon, Apple, Google, Samsung, the platform vendors like Espressif, and the device manufacturers as well. So basically they cover all the companies of the IoT ecosystem. Matter aims to reduce the fragmentation in the IoT ecosystem. In short, any Matter-enabled controller, like a phone app, can set up and control any Matter-enabled device, which means that you do not require a dedicated phone app now to control Matter devices. Matter is a secure application layer protocol built over IP, which means that networking technologies like Wi-Fi and Thread are supported. Matter is a local network protocol and does not talk anything about the cloud. It is left to the implementers.
I have one question here. So you mentioned that no custom phone app is needed for Matter. So is some phone app required, or can my, as an example, switch directly control the light?
So there are two aspects to it. To answer the first part of your question, the ecosystem supports Matter out of the box, which means that the native OSs support Matter. So I do not require a specific phone app.
So I can use the Google Home app or the Apple Home app itself, which
Exactly.
are already present on the phone.
Exactly. And the second part of your question, Matter has a feature that enables device-to-device automation, wherein a switch can talk with a light without having to go through a third-party entity or a cloud.
Okay. So this would be the fastest communication because everything is happening actually locally.
Yes.
So
right.
as soon as I press the switch, I can see the light bulb turning on.
That's precisely.
Okay.
Another thing is Matter setup is performed over BLE. So BLE used to onboard a device onto the Wi-Fi network or the IP network.
BLE is Bluetooth Low Energy.
Yeah. If the device is already on the IP network, say Ethernet devices, then they can be set up using the IP network directly.
Okay, all right, thanks. So that's very helpful. That's a little bit about Matter, and that's why we've gone ahead and chosen Matter, which is well integrated with all these ecosystems. Now let's go to Chirag. Chirag, Rishikesh mentioned that Matter is available as an open source SDK. So why ESP ZeroCode?
So let me go back to maybe about a year ago where we started ESP ZeroCode. We as Espressif, who actually know so much about Matter and have been a part of Matter since the start, still thought we listed down, let's say, a few points, which includes the development, the onboarding of the devices, the manufacturing, and then actual production. So all of that was a lot of efforts, and in that part, we thought that there should be a faster way for our customers to go to production. That's where we started the idea of ZeroCode, where we can actually create final firmwares which our customers just get the modules from us, put it on their PCB, and just put the devices on the shelf. That was the idea of ZeroCode.
So basically, whatever learning experience or ramp up that we as Espressif had to go through,
Right.
the customers need not go through, they can just benefit from it if we offer it.
Right. And as you might already know, Matter places a very high bar on the security as well as the certifications for the actual product. So in ZeroCode, we also have taken care of all of those things, and the device manufacturer need not worry about any of those. In fact, there was so many things that we created other services that Espressif now offers. One of them is the secure manufacturing service, in which your module or your device is manufactured. Unique certificates are manufactured on the modules, which includes the Matter DAC. And those are unique per device. It takes a lot of efforts back and forth between the cloud and everything for the actual functionality.
So all of that manufacturing complexity will be masked by ZeroCode.
Yes,
right.
yes.
Okay.
So one is secure manufacturing, but the other service that we also launched was the certification service, where Espressif takes the device through the Matter certification on behalf of the customer. There are a lot of pre-certs runs and other ecosystem related testing. We basically do all of that for the actual product. Coming to ecosystem, so Matter certification typically does not involve checking with the other ecosystems. So we actually launched another service for that. So yeah, there are a lot of services, which is basically a QA type of service where you can put your device in the QA setup, and a lot of things basically are tested on that daily or whenever a new update is present. And in this setup, we also test with the other ecosystems like Google, Apple, Amazon, Samsung, typically the most commonly used ones, but we can easily add any other ecosystem also to this setup. ZeroCode basically encompasses all of these services, and it is like its own product or its own blanket of things which covers all of these things.
I see. So it just packages the whole thing in a streamlined manner so that it is much easier for device makers to.
Precisely.
Got it. This is why you mentioned that it is ZeroCode. Are there any additional benefits that ESP ZeroCode provides to device makers that are consuming this service?
So yeah, to list some points, one of the things is it is a very simple website that you can use. You can just go on selecting whatever your product is. You can basically, as you mentioned earlier, you can create your product in just a matter of few minutes and actually test it on your device. So the whole experience for the device manufacturer is very straightforward. And for these firmwares that are being flashed on the device, we have done a lot of robust testing, as I mentioned, in the QA services and so on. We do a lot of over-the-air updates on the devices daily, and a lot of negative testing also, which are not typically handled in other testings. Another thing is we have enabled a lot of security features on the device that includes the secure boot, flash encryption, and NUS encryption. All of these are not mandatory for Matter as such, but we have gone the extra steps to make it secure for everyone. So with this firmware, the user experience, the end user experience is next level, you can say. All the major ecosystems are supported out of the box, and these ecosystems themselves have spent a lot of efforts on making Matter working with their apps or their ecosystems itself. So you can guarantee that the end user experience will be phenomenal, and they can just get the device and get started with it in a matter of minutes. And Adding to this, since the ecosystem supported, you can always use their voice assistants to control the actual device via voice. And so for this, the device manufacturers don't have to take any extra efforts. All of them, we have taken them in zero code. First is, and because we are using Matter, most of it is taken care of, and we have gone some extra steps and done some certifications with these ecosystem providers also for the actual product. So even that is, you can basically guarantee that it will always work. Another point is, this is the most cost optimized solution. The device manufacturers basically don't have to put in any engineering efforts, any development costs, or the QA and anything. Espressif is taking care of everything for them. In fact, we have taken extra engineering efforts to make sure everything works on our lowest cost optimized chip. So that is one of the big advantages to the device manufacturers. And another, I guess maybe even bigger than the cost optimized thing is that this is the fastest way the device manufacturers can go from development or from basically thinking about a product to actual production very quickly.
Okay, so both of you have been talking about going from evaluation to production in the shortest possible time. Can we actually see some kind of demo which showcases ESP ZeroCode?
Oh yes, we have a demo here which we can go through. Maybe let's together go through the creation process itself, product creation process, and we can see how it can be very easily done. So the website basically offers two different paths. Let's look at the fastest path first, which is basically rebranding of a existing product. We have partnered with some ODMs and listed a few of their products here. I think we have just listed a few of them, but there are a lot more that we already are in contact with. So there are things like light bulb and a plug or a retrofit switch. Maybe for our example, let's say you want to build a retrofit switch where you don't have any hardware of yours, but you actually want to create a product. You just basically you can place orders for these retrofit switches. Just send us an email and the Espressif ZeroCode team will get in contact with you and you can start your production as quickly as possible.
So this is the white label kind of product manufacturing.
Exactly, this is just the white labeling or the rebranding of the actual product.
So the hardware is available, the firmware is available, and hence it is the fastest path in this case.
Yes.
And in cases wherein I have my own hardware,
Actually, another thing here is, so these products are already certified, so even the certification time is drastically reduced in this case. Sorry, coming to you.
yeah, so I was saying, if I have my own hardware and I want to build Matter-enabled products, then how do I go about it?
So that is the other path here, which is creating your own product from scratch. So for our example, let's say you want to create a plug, which is typically a wall socket kind of device.
Right.
So we have a lot of products already listed on the website here, which are light bulbs with different drivers. In fact, there are PWM drivers, there are other drivers also supported. There are wall mounted switches, as you can see, there are plugs, even window covering we have added to this. And there are other configurations also. For example, it could be a single channel socket, it could be a 2-channel socket, or even an extension strip. We have added support for all of them. But for our example, let's go ahead with a basic socket.
So I have a question here, Chirag.
Yeah.
So as far as I can see, the device types that are listed over here are mostly related to lighting. As far as the Matter specification goes, it has quite a few device types as well. So do we plan to add them here?
So eventually we do plan to add all of the Matter supported devices on ZeroCode. We are just prioritizing a few other things first, or a few devices first, and then eventually we'll add all of them.
Okay, so if I'm a device manufacturer and I'm interested in any specific device type, can I reach out to you? And
Yes, absolutely. Whenever you email us, we'll start working on it immediately and get back to you as soon as possible.
That's great.
The next thing you do is select the hardware that you want basically select the module, you can say. There are two kinds of manufacturers, I would say. one who already have their PCB made with some other Espressif chip, let's say, and they would typically want their exact chip or their exact module on to not do the PCB part again. So you can select that particular module from here, and then there would be other type of device manufacturers who are creating their PCB right now from scratch. Yeah. So in that case, they can evaluate other things. So Matter supports, as you mentioned earlier, both Wi-Fi and Thread. We do have support for both of them. The second chip here can be used for the Thread communication part, and the above chip can be used for the Wi-Fi communication part.
Right. So basically, it covers all the SoCs that we support in a way. One thing which I found pretty cool was the choice of selecting the module. Right. Going to that level of detail is super cool. Very nice.
So you mentioned about supporting all the SoCs. We actually don't have support. We have some newer SoCs, typically C6 and C2. We are in process of adding those also to the website.
Okay.
And C6 out of that supports both Wi-Fi and Thread, so that will be a dual combination, you can say. For our use case, so I have a C3 dev kit here connected to my laptop, so I'll just select that one, and let's go to the next step where you can actually do some configurations on your hardware. So again, there are two kinds of device manufacturers, one who already have their PCB made. So for them, they can directly select whatever IO pins their hardware is connected to. A typical socket would have, let's say, a button, a switch, and a relay output. So they can directly select whatever IO pins they have from here and configure a few other things which are typically needed by the product.
Right. So if I change the IO pins over here, will that be reflected into the diagram there as well?
Oh yes. So you can visualize what pin your device is connected to. So if I select a different pin, as you can see, the diagram shows a different pin that it is connected to, and so on.
I also thought this was very cool when we looked at it.
Yeah. I think we have got a similar reaction from others also who have seen the website. So yeah.
Okay.
And so this is one part, and the other type of device manufacturers are again who don't have already their PCB with them. So they can design accordingly and choose whatever IO pins are there on their selected module. As you can see, not all the pins are showed here, just a few which are present on the module. Yeah, so when I am now going to the next step, basically a firmware is being created for the things that we selected in the product page, the same GPIOs that we want on our device, and now the firmware is being created and it is being downloaded on the laptop here, and easily you can now flash the firmware, and we'll see a demo of setting up the device using the ecosystem. I have Apple Home here. Let me just quickly connect the device here.
This is the other cool part that I thought was nice, because we've integrated the launchpad. Is you can just flash the device right from the browser itself.
Yeah. Everything can be done from the browser. You don't need any setup on your laptop.
Right.
So that development cost, development time, and everything is also just not present for ZeroCode. The firmware is being now flashed on the device, so it takes a few seconds, you can say. So yeah.
So the firmware was built on the fly and being flashed through the UI.
Yes. It was built for the selected product. So yeah, that is one of the there are some optimizations that are happening in the cloud on the backend side.
Yeah. So the selected product and the selected hardware configuration, the GPIO settings and other.
Correct. And this is, since we have selected the C3 dev kit, it is being built for that. Right. So there are a lot of pieces that happen in the background to make this work. And as you can see, the device is ready right now, and it is flashed. The typical device logs are on one side of the screen, and the complete device manual is on the other side. There is the setup code and everything, which we will now actually use to commission the device. Let me just do a quick commissioning.
So this is now the actual end user experience that you are demonstrating.
Yes, correct. So this is how the end user will typically use the product. I'll just add a new product in the Apple Home application that I have. I'll scan the QR code here, and the device is now being set up. As you can see, the color on the device has also changed. So
We can see the logs there as
yeah, we can see the logs progressing ahead, and the device is now being set up into the Apple ecosystem. The device also supports other ecosystems. We have added a few documentation for a few of them here, which the device manufacturers can themselves take a look at and experience all the different ecosystems. The device actually can be added in multiple ecosystems at the same time, so you can do that also. And there is also a section about the typical device functionality here, how you can factory reset the device, what indicators are shown on the device whenever something happens. So there is a lot of things that we have already taken care of, and or basically everything is present in the actual firmware. I'll just rename this to plug because I'm adding a plug right now.
So what you are doing there on the iPad is the end user experience, how
Correct.
the end user uses the product. Whereas what we see on the screen here, at least on the left-hand side of the screen, those are probably the pamphlets or things that
Right, device packaging.
I as a device manufacturer will give out to.
Correct.
End
That is
users.
typically, yeah, the device manual, you can say. And as you can see, the plug has been added, and I can directly control the plug on and off from here. And as you can see, the logs as well as the actual LED on the device changes whenever this is done.
Can we use our voice commands to control?
Yes, you can. Maybe you can try.
Hey Siri, turn off the plug.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's
So,
And the good thing here is that there is no custom phone app that you have to install. It's just happening from the Apple Home
right.
app itself.
Right. And this app comes pre-baked into the OS itself. Another thing which you can see on the screen here is the test mode. This is typically something which the device manufacturers might be interested in. So whenever the product comes into their production line, you can say, there are some hardware related tests that need to be performed. For example, whether the button on the plug is working, whether the LED on the plug is working. So we have added all of that in this firmware itself. So you can actually experience that part also. This is something which is helpful for the device manufacturers. And once you are happy with the product, you can always go back and forth if you want to tweak something, change some GPIO value or anything. But once you are happy, you can go to the next step, which is the
Most important part.
it is the configuration
Placing
part
the order.
actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought placing the order.
But this basically then this here is a fully functional Matter product then, because you could actually use it completely using the iPad.
Correct.
And it based on whatever configuration you chose, it downloaded it on your dev kit right now. But if it was a PCB, then I as a device manufacturer can actually take this and ship.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Okay.
You can,
As long as I certify.
yeah.
But
So we have taken care of a lot of things for on the certification side. You can typically so let's come to this page now. There are a number of things mentioned here, which typically some configurations that need to be done before actually placing the orders. There are some things mentioned here, like Espressif offers the updates on the device for at least 3 years. So that is one of the big advantages for the device manufacturers. The product will always have the latest security fixes and all the bug fixes. It will also have new features because we want to provide the best user experience for the device manufacturers as well as the end users.
So, this is the first time that we as Espressif would be managing or would be responsible for maintaining the firmware on the devices which are in the field.
Right. And we have, for the exact reason, we have gone the extra steps on the robustness and the QA and the certification side ourselves, and we are making sure that everything continues to work daily and regularly on all the products. The next part here,
before we move, there's another question. I think we keep hearing it from certain customers, and it will be good to talk about it in the session as well. There are a number of ZeroCode customers who, because Matter is new, they just want to test the waters. And so instead of having to do the engineering development themselves, they just want to place orders with ZeroCode and go launch devices. And then after probably a few months or a year's time, they would want to move over and say, okay, fine, we've started with ZeroCode, but let us take over the development now and do it. The reason I mentioned it right now is because we've talked about firmware upgrades and Espressif being responsible for delivering these upgrades for 3 years. So if there are customers like this who want to take over the ownership after, some time in the future, do we offer that option?
So we actually had not thought about this maybe let's say a month ago, but then we had a customer query asking exactly this scenario where they wanted to take over the firmware in 3 months, 3 months later. So we gave it some thought internally, and we actually now have a solution in which you can do that. You just need to mention that you are going to take over it later on, and then Espressif during manufacturing we'll take some extra steps so that can be done very easily. And once you have taken over, it will be you or the device manufacturer who has to maintain the firmware and provide the updates.
So essentially, once you do this setup, then I as a device maker can take a call at some point saying that, okay, fine, from this point onwards, I'll start maintaining the firmware and Espressif need not. So Espressif will not be able to deliver those upgrades, but only I can.
Correct.
Okay.
So does that mean that after that, you as the device manufacturer would get the source code as well?
So we don't plan to share the source code right now with anyone, but we can always figure that out on a case-to-case basis.
Okay.
Okay, coming to the next part, which is the typical badges that you see on the product packaging. One of them is the Matter badge, which you can add this badge once your device is Matter certified, which once you complete the ZeroCode process, your device will be. So you can put this badge on your product. There are some other badges as well, which are typically linked to the ecosystem. Rishikesh, since you have been talking to all of these ecosystem providers, maybe you can talk about this.
Right. So I've been working with the ecosystem partners in the context of works with programs. First, I'll talk about the advantages of these programs. For me, as a device manufacturer, I would definitely want these badges to be present on the product packaging so that they have more value, right? People would definitely be interested in buying devices which already have these badges. And the second advantage from the end user point of view is that having a particular badge on the device guarantees that the device would work seamlessly in that particular ecosystem.
I have a question here. So I guess I have multiple questions. One of them is, are these badges mandatory?
So these badges are not mandatory, but they are definitely recommended.
Okay. And if I don't have this badge on my product, does that mean it will not work with Google Home or the other thing?
That does not mean that it won't work with a particular ecosystem, even if you don't have the badge. Else it would destroy the purpose of Matter, right? But for seamless experience, it is a good thing to have.
Okay.
And one more thing, all of these works with programs have a process associated with them wherein they run exhaustive set of test cases on the devices in their ecosystem.
So similar to the Matter certification, there is some certification for each of these ecosystems also.
Right. There is, wherein we have to run some test cases at our end and maybe then ship a couple of devices to the ecosystem guys, and they run some test cases there, and at the end of it, when everything is successful, you get the badge and then are allowed to put it on your packaging.
And the device manufacturers don't have to do anything. Espressif will take care of everything for this.
The device manufacturers may have to do some kind of paperwork that would be between them and the ecosystems, but apart from that, nothing else.
Okay, that's, I think, everything taken care of. The paperwork is just some formality thing.
Yes, that's right.
And then again, because the ZeroCode firmware is something that as Espressif we've tested multiple times with all these ecosystems, I hope it just races through all these certifications much faster.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. If you just scroll down, there is just some final information about your product. You can just verify that. and once you are happy with everything, you have done all the certifications and everything, you can basically go ahead and place orders with us. Typically you would want some test devices or test modules which you can actually try it on your PCB. You need not. So the second part of this is the actual Matter membership part, but before that you might want to just do some quick test. You can just enter some quantity here. Let's say you want to test 10 modules for you. You can confirm the order, and once the order is placed, Espressif team will get in contact with you and basically take your order ahead from that point of onwards. And
So this is the order for test modules.
yes, once you are actually happy with the test modules, the next part is the certification and the final production modules. You have to be a CSA member for selling Matter products, you can say. We have quick documentation, and there are a number of membership levels that you can choose from.
So this is the CSA website.
Yeah, this is the CSA website which mentions about all the different kinds of memberships. The device manufacturer can choose from any of these CSA membership levels that they want, and anything works with ZeroCode.
Right. So I'll add a point here. The associate membership is specifically for device manufacturers who want to do white labeling. So the first part of the demo that we showcased, wherein we already have some connections with the ODMs and people can just do rebranding or white labeling, they can directly do with the associate membership.
Okay. So once you have your membership, the next step is typically the certification of the hardware itself, of your product itself. And once your certification is complete, you can actually go to production with your product.
Right.
Yeah, so since Rishikesh has been working on the Matter side, helping a number of customers with their certification, Rishikesh, can you let people know what are the typical timelines or steps in the Matter certification process?
Sure. So the Matter certification process is basically categorized into two parts. First part is wherein you submit your product to the CSA approved ATLs, that is the authorized test laboratories, and they do the exhaustive testing that is a part of the certification test harness or the manual test cases, whatever they are. And once the testing is complete, the second part is the device manufacturer reaches out to the alliance for the paperwork on the certification point of view. Once that is done, for per product or per category of product, the alliance gives something called as certification declaration file, which is then integrated into your product.
Typically, how long does this whole process take?
The ATL testing, if all goes well, is complete around 2 weeks, and the certification application takes another 2 weeks. So the total process would take, I would say, 1 month or so.
Okay, so can we say that, so maybe this is a question for Kedar, what would be the typical lead times then, considering this certification and everything? How long would a typical product take from, like I mentioned earlier, from the idea to actual production?
I think there's two parts to it. There are parts related to lead times for the SOCs or modules itself. That depends on the actual time of the year and the kind of demands that we are seeing. So there will be certain lead times there. I think most people who are using Espressif products are typically already aware of our lead times as far as specific SOCs are concerned. So that is one part. The second part is the certification process that you highlighted, which could be a month, but again, depending upon the queues at the ATLs and the
Right.
CSA, there may be some variance there. And then the final part is the manufacturing. After the certification is done, manufacturing of these modules at our factory. I think we've spent a lot of time making sure that the manufacturing process moves very, very quickly, and we can do it in a very deterministic amount of time. So I think that's how the whole thing is structured. Yeah. Rishikesh mentioned about certain steps in the certification process, culminating to the CSA delivering a certificate declaration to the customer. Can you talk a little bit about how that process integrates into the ZeroCode flow, where we help our customers and then where do they come back and talk to us? Can you shed some little bit?
Yeah, so we help our customers get through the membership as well as the certification at different levels. So typically the customer would need some emailing to CSA and back and forth. So Espressif does that part on behalf of the customer. The customer just has to agree that they want the membership. That is the first part. And for the certification part also, since we have done a lot of certification for the products already, now whenever let's say there is a new light bulb, the certification process itself is very quick, since there is just the certification transfer which needs to happen. So maybe it need not even go through the entire ATL process and the 1 month process which Rishikesh mentioned. It can happen pretty quickly. Another thing is, as Rishikesh mentioned earlier, there is some certifications for the ecosystems also. Typically they also need maybe 1 or 2 devices for them to test. So Espressif also is in contact with each of them, and we take care of all of those. So the device manufacturer just has to contact Espressif and that's it, and everything is taken care of.
Okay.
Once the certification is complete, you can place orders directly right from the website. You just enter whatever the certification details are, enter the quantity that you want, and again confirm your order here. And this is how you can easily place your first order as well as your corresponding orders for the ZeroCode product that you have created.
And with these orders, the modules that we ship will have the certified firmware now.
Correct.
Which is pre-flashed on those
Right.
modules.
Okay, and once the orders are placed, the next thing is, or the important thing is about the pricing. So what are the typical prices for the ESP ZeroCode?
So ESP ZeroCode has the costing has 2 parts to it. One is an upfront cost, depending upon. So we've looked at the membership levels and certain costing for that. So there is certain upfront cost, and then there is a per module cost. The upfront cost is mostly the cost related to the CSA membership, and then any subsequent costs for certification,
Right.
and obviously costs for the ATLs for running the tests. So those are certain upfront costs. I think the details about the membership costs are already available on the website. For certification costs, depending upon the ATL that is chosen, the costs may vary. We have already worked or partnered with certain ATLs, and then we can make sure that that overhead is fairly minimal on that side. Then there is the cost about from a per module point of view. If you are an Espressif customer, then you would be typically aware about our per unit costs for most of our SOCs, depending upon the kind of modules that you are looking at. Because in this particular case, Espressif is additionally taking over the responsibility of delivering upgrades for a few years in the future.
Right.
There will be a tiny markup that will be associated with each of these modules, so that which make sure that all of our effort in ensuring that the upgrades are delivered over the years are justified.
Okay, and the modules that will be shipped to the customer, each of these modules would be programmed with the device specific unique things that are required in the Matter protocol. So can any one of you highlight on the manufacturing process that happens in the background?
Yeah, so once the order is placed, there are a number of steps, a number of things that happen after that before the modules actually reach. So yeah, let's talk about the manufacturing workflow. So there are 2 parts to the manufacturing process. So one is what happens in Espressif factory, and the other is what happens in our device manufacturer's factory. So whenever the device comes on the production line in Espressif factory, per device unique data is flashed on the device, which includes the DAC which is required by Matter. There are other QR code related data which is also per device unique, and
CD.
the
Certification.
yeah,
declaration.
and the certification declaration which you get once you have completed your certification, and it also has the actual firmware also already flashed on the device. So, and that's it. We do some basic tests whether the module is manufactured correctly, and this is now packaged and sent to the other part, which is the customer's or the device manufacturer's factory. They just have to mount it on their PCB, solder it, and package the product. Typically there are some QR codes involved which they can stick the label and or etch it on their product, and that's it.
So you mentioned that the QR codes are unique per device. So how do they know which QR code goes to which device?
Yeah, so we do have a tool already available which we share with the device manufacturers, where whenever you power on the device, the device advertises its QR code details, and the QR code is fetched by the tool and it is directly connected to your printer itself. So you can print it and stick it right there then and there. So that process is also quite seamless and basically zero efforts for the device manufacturer, you can say. Once the QR code is stuck on the device or etched on the device, the next thing is typically the tests, which I mentioned previously, the test mode of the device. You can test the hardware part of your product, the LED or the buttons or anything else that you want to test, and maybe you can also test the Wi-Fi range and everything, so that the device, you can ensure that each device is working correctly, and that's it. You just have to package this product and you can put it on the shelf. So for the device manufacturers, there typically is nothing, you can say. They just have to do what they typically do and just sell it.
Most of the heavy lifting is done on Espressif's manufacturing line.
So what next with ESP ZeroCode? Now that Matter v1.2 has been launched, it primarily adds the support of appliance device types like refrigerator, washers, room air conditioners. So will we be seeing them here?
So we are actually already in process of adding these appliances on the website very soon. It will typically be a 2-chip solution where the primary chip, which is the Espressif chip, will do all the heavy lifting of Matter and everything else, and the other chip, which is the appliance, that will handle all the driver specific things, because this is how the hardware design is in the appliances, where they don't want to change the driver part a lot.
And a host MCU drives all the communication. In a way, the wireless MCU is different. And
so this will be more like a Matter coprocessor, exposing its functionality over UART or something.
It will typically be a UART protocol that we are planning on, and I think it should soon be available on the website for everyone to try as well. And the relevant documentation and everything will also be available, because it requires some coding, but that is on the other MCU part. You don't have to care anything about Matter in this case. So this adds a lot of customizations that you can do. It is now not just restricted to refrigerators, you can say. If you want a light bulb which has some fancy features, you can add that also very easily in this 2-chip solution based. We actually are working on another thing, again, about the customization. We have been receiving a lot of customer queries about whether they can add so currently the website supports 2-channel and a 4-channel socket, but we are getting queries about, can we add a 3-channel socket? So we are working on doing everything dynamically. You can basically create whatever device you want, whether you want a light plus a fan plus a refrigerator if you want. You can probably easily add that also soon.
Right. Because the Matter spec has the support of having multiple device types on the same Matter device. So if those are facilitated through the ZeroCode, then that's very nice.
Yeah, and that should soon be available on the website, as I mentioned.
So there are a lot of customers who reach out to us asking to do certain customizations on top of ZeroCode, because they want some minor variations or some specific behaviors in certain cases. So what do we plan to do about this?
So as I mentioned earlier, the 2-chip solution is one way to do this, but we are also working on a single chip solution for this, so that there are less costs and everything. That typically will follow the user and the kernel model, which is split in the firmware itself, and the kernel part will be taken care of everything by Espressif. That will probably be a completely Matter certified part, and that takes care of the communication and everything Matter related. And the user part, which is the application part, can be specific to whatever you want. Whether you want a light bulb and its other features, you can easily add that. This, I think, will take some time to get done, and we are working on it. We are doing some POCs on our side, but it might take some time.
So the reason to split this into 2 halves is that one is the certifiable half and then the other is the flexible half.
And this, so in ZeroCode, since we are guaranteeing the certification of the product, the certifiable part ideally should not be touched by the application.
So far, we have been talking about ESP ZeroCode only in the context of Matter. Are we expecting ESP ZeroCode with some other solutions from Espressif?
So again, we are in the process of doing that. I am saying this a lot, but yeah, we are working
A
on
lot of
multiple.
activity happening.
Yeah, we are working on multiple things and adding support for a lot of things. One of the next, you can say, protocol will be ESP Rainmaker, which is Espressif's own cloud solution where the devices can be controlled remotely and through other controllers as well. We are working on it. I think that should also soon be available. Another thing here is, so Rainmaker also offers its own custom ecosystem or a matter fabric, you can say. So if some device manufacturer actually wants a phone app in their name, Espressif also offers that, and we can very easily do that also. This should soon be available, soon, I guess, in quotes, on the website, and I think, yeah.
So Matter plus Rainmaker combined in a way.
So this is what I talked about was just Rainmaker, but Matter plus Rainmaker is another thing, I think, which can
in
be
the
easily
context of
done.
Fabric.
Yeah, in the context of Fabric, yes.
So how is the response so far that we have been getting of ESP ZeroCode?
So we have been getting a lot of customer queries. A lot of new companies have been trying out ZeroCode and placing orders for the test samples. Some of them have also gone to production. The devices are actually on the shelf. I think typically in US and UK there are more devices right now, but we are getting response from all over the world, you can say.
That's very nice. That is very good to know. I guess we've had a good discussion about ZeroCode and have answered the generic questions or the common questions that we receive from our customers. So I hope that this discussion is helpful to everyone watching the video. And thank you. That is all then.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.